Don't be an idiot lah. Don't feel so entitled lah that the government or the people of Singapore should be your patron and pay you to do your art because your self-expression is so damn important to society.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inconsiderate Insights with the usual gang of troublemakers. Right, we've got me, Pravin, we've got Iqbal over here, and we've got Zeke, VI. Right, and joining us today, we have a very special guest, Wei Choon from the Woke Salaryman. Right,
this
is what up, man.
Right, thank you for joining us. Right, you are a borderline celebrity in Singapore. I see it shared, the Woke Salaryman content shared all over the place. I'm talking Facebook and Instagram, which is huge, right? Which means, it's riding on two very big different demographics. So you guys have managed to synthesize a whole bunch of complex topics about finance and made it accessible and fun to consume for young people. So Wei Choon, just to kick things off, like, what would you say is the post that you've personally felt the most proud of?
I think we did one a while back. This was like quite a long time back, and this was like a departure from our usual stuff. So our usual content, right, tends to be kind of preachy or like like PowerPoint slidey. Like basically, it's like somebody who knows better than you about a topic, usually personal finance, kind of advising you on why you should think this way or do this thing with your money. But we did one a long time back where I think the title was called "Rich People Problems." So that one was kind of a sort of a dramatic / narrative kind of thing where it basically depicted this guy who died lah. Basically, that's the spoiler or that's a twist in the story. Then like he is at a bar and then he's talking to the bartender, showing off like, actually I'm very rich one, I can buy this whole bar 5 times over, that kind of thing. But actually what happened is that bar is actually some kind of a weird afterlife limbo space where he has died. So he's talking about how, okay, I made a lot of money, but I neglected my family. I'm going to go back tomorrow and going to start treating my family right. But then it's too late, he's dead already. And he realized that later on. And he's like, oh, can I give you some money? Can we reverse this? But it's like, no matter how much money you gave me, you cannot reverse time. You cannot reverse life. So that one I was particularly proud. I looking back, I don't think it's that good. It's just that I was proud that we did that because I remember like me as a very neurotic artist, right? Like I almost didn't want to post it because like I remember putting it on Facebook, right? And then I was scrolling through the album and it's like, wow, this is shit. Like who the artwork is shit, and then I cannot who's not gonna like predict the twist that the guy is dead. I thought it was very obvious. So I almost didn't post it, and I was very my self-esteem very low one. So usually when it comes to my own art, I always like whack myself the hardest. So
wait. So now that's something as designers here, especially the both of you, Zeke and Val, something you can relate to. Like, so how at which point did you feel like you finally reached a point like, you know what, I'm actually a pretty good artist and maybe a bit less self-critical?
Never. I still feel like every day before we post the thing that, like there are so many blind spots that I have. There are so many things I cannot draw well. I suck at drawing cars, for example. And I don't know why I sometimes need to trace cars, and then I feel like I'm just like, oh, I'm such a loser. I cannot draw properly. I need to rely on reference. And not just that, I need to look for the correct angle of the car, then I put it behind, then I trace the thing. So I don't think I'll ever get over it. This is just me. But in a way, helps me get better at my craft also because I'm never thinking like I'm done, always improving. Yeah.
That's a good mentality, man.
They call it the white belt mentality. You always think of yourself as a beginner.
Yep.
Right? There's something.
That's
always a student.
Okay.
White belt.
Yeah.
So
but can be quite paralyzing. Like I often need to force myself to publish things because social media also, the nature of social media, everything's got to be done fast. You cannot wait because if you want to, what they call trend jack, like if something's happening in the news and you want to kind of respond to that, you cannot wait too long and you cannot spend too much time polishing your artwork. You gotta just post it before the thing gets old. Yeah.
So because you have a unique perspective, right? Because you're both a marketer and creative, in that sense, a visual storyteller. So you're always forced to kind of battle that two elements of like speed, and then you also have that perfectionist part of you that wants the content to be right out. How do you manage with that? How do you cope that?
I think the guiding principle that my co-founder always kind of nag at me is done is better than perfect. And honestly, in my world, there's nothing is perfect.
Yep.
There's always something you can improve. There's
Yep.
always a little bit of shading in the background I can improve on, or there's always something in typography I can do a little bit more to make sure it flows better or whatever. So
Right.
the guiding principle now that we go for, because like I also have no pretenses that what we do at Woke Salaryman is very high art or super beautifully designed. It's just about clarity, like as long as I maximize the kind of information perception and absorption by the viewer, I think we just publish. Yeah.
I mean, like there, you may not say, you may not believe it's high art, but I'm sure that you've got DMs. Like you have a kind of work that resonates with people on a very deep level. Like, are there any memorable things that fans have told you, have sent to you?
I think mostly my co-founder usually do the IG stuff, and on IG the DMs are a lot more direct and heavier. Like they like to message people on IG. I don't know why, versus Facebook. Facebook, a lot more boomers will message us, but on IG, the young people, they get very vivid about the stuff they message us. But we're
Anything
very
that stands
heartened
out?
when, sorry?
Anything that stands out in your memory?
Yeah, like there are people who not say have made it in their financial journey yet, but like on their way there, or there are people that are quite behind. Like some people inherit debt, or their parents gamble, or they have kind of critical illnesses or disabilities, and just there are a lot of people in a lot of worse situations than the normal people, and they need our content a lot. And when we get messages from those people, or maybe people with bad habits, like we have some people with gambling habits that text us also, and I think like that makes us feel very like warms our heart because it feels like we change the mindset of somebody out there that might help him or her turn his or her life around. And that's the kind of stuff that really makes you go like, what I'm doing is meaningful.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fulfillment.
So, okay, Zeke, I got something here that I want you to write on. I
Sure.
mean, it's directed to you and Wei Choon. So, Wei Choon, I mean, when you found your partner, right? I'm guessing there was a kind of synergy, and you found like, how did that happen? How did you guys realize that, hey, we vibe together? And then Zeke, maybe you can add your 2 cents in as a creative professional, like why partnerships, finding that right, that vibe is important to you, right?
Yeah,
What's it
so
like to work with you?
I've been in the creative work line for quite a while, and I always, you are very right, like having a good creative partner is very important. Actually, my co-founder Remy and I met when we were in poly. We didn't work together until much later when we were both at Mothership, which is like a local news media kind of website lah.
Oh, you
So we
were
were
in
both there.
Mothership.
Yes. So I was at
Nice.
Mothership as a videographer slash designer slash
Holy
cartoonist
shit, but
slash
you must
artist.
have been there really earlier, like early in the mothership's formation, is it?
Well, Mothership is not that old lah, and since then they have gone strength to strength and really, took over the role of like the main alternative, I think, news media site in Singapore. That's quite an achievement lah. So like when Remy and I were there, actually Remy and I we vibe quite well when we were in poly anyway, because like I remember my earliest memory of Remy is that I don't know why we were doing this, but because our school was in Ngee Ann, right, then we were on the 10th floor, School of Mass Comm represent, then we were on the 10th floor, and then we were staying over to do project. He's doing another project, I'm doing my own project. Then for some reason he just went, hey, Wei Choon, you want to throw plastic bags down? So what he did, right, this asshole, he just found a bunch of plastic bags. He will go to the toilet, then he'll, you have to push the toilet thing, then it will fill up a bit, then you gotta keep pushing. He'll fill the whole bag up, tie it up, and then throw it down, and then it will go boom, like damn loud. We just did that the whole night, and I don't even know why, or I never even heard of that as a fun thing to do. I don't know where he learned that from, but that was my earliest memory of him. So earlier, we were already doing stupid shit already, like very, very early on. And when we were at Mothership, then we really kind of did work together. And what often happened was that if there's some piece of news going on, then he would say, hey, it'll be cool if you can draw this thing. Then he like those kind of New Yorker kind of cartoons kind of thing. So
Yeah.
one picture with a caption. So he always had these kind of crazy ideas. So back then already, like I think I always wanted to work with him, because he kind of round out my creative blind spot quite well. He's a very good writer, and he's a very good like ad writer. So my strength was more of like visual storytelling. So together it was quite good. And I think also, like you're mentioning, like how important it is to find like a partner that you vibe well and also can de-conflict well with. I think that's very important, because like I think as a capable designer, right, or artist or marketer or whatever lah, like when you work in a team, right, your ability to deconflict is very important because when you argue together, then you still need to pull through to finish off the project. And if you don't vibe with a guy, right, being able to deconflict is easy because I can just say, okay lah, I argue, then okay, I let it go or he let it go, then we compromise, and then the product will just go out with a little bit of a stank in it, like something is not quite right. But being of the right frequency or vibe, especially in deconflicting, is great because we can always discuss things through. Even if we disagree, we don't have to just let it be. We can actually talk about it and not take it personally. And that's super important, especially when it comes to creative work, I think, because it's subjective at the end of the day, but also being creatively uh, fluent, right, means that we can really talk about story and talk about visual in a way that is not just a not feeling it. Like, can you make the thing like a bit more pop or more creative? Like, so there is something we can use creative terms that mean something like composition or contrast or color theory, and that helps a lot. Yeah.
Bring back down design
Language,
principles.
language and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for me, partnership is like something that's key in terms of like producing great work or great collaborations. So I look at partnerships as you kind of enabling each other. So when going for partnerships, like an ideal one would be someone who actually sees something that you don't see, like cover your gray areas and all that. Like what you mentioned, he's good at advertising, copywriting, and all that. So you guys are kind of good in your own ways, and you guys collaborate. So that's what something that's going to take it on the next level. So and also to your point regarding the process where you do get personal, that is something that can kind of elevate the partnership like further. Because if you get personal, like, hey, I'm not gonna talk to you, man, like, because I kind of think that my idea is right and yours is wrong. So you gotta kind of compromise and give it some space, and for it to all move on.
I
Yeah.
think inevitable sometimes also because like artists have egos also, and it feels like sometimes if I say, "Hey, bro, I don't like your idea," it might come across like I don't like you, and I might also sometimes take it like that. And I think it's important. Like I'm quite grateful for my co-founder Raymond because he's able to walk away sometimes and then cool off, and then we can talk together again properly. Like it won't escalate to a point where it gets too out of hand now. Because I also have my ego, he also has his ego. But sometimes when you get emotional, especially when it's two dudes, and dudes like ego wise, I think dudes can bring it a lot further sometimes. Don't know how to deconflict properly, then become an ego thing, then start to get personal. But we are able to walk away, and I'm very grateful. Because I have been in creative partnerships before that are not like that. And those are quite difficult. Even if you agree 100% with everything somebody says, if you are not able to, not put your ego aside creatively, it can be quite a nightmare also.
Yeah.
Iqbal, so I think like I could see you kind of vibing and jiving to what they're saying. Because Iqbal here, I mean, you're the big kahuna of a artist collective, right? Like street artists, at Diplomat. So like, is all this talk about like de-escalation and working with various artistic egos and trying to get them aligned? Like, is this fresh to you? Like, what's your take on it?
I mean, whatever has been said, it's already been said. I think, like to be calculative is actually not just it's not just in terms of personal ego, but actually, like when you start drawing lines, that's where it becomes a problem. I
Is
think
it
What do you
literally
mean by
drawing
line?
lines or drawing lines in between one
when you
another?
draw lines, when you start to draw lines, say, hey, I only do this, I cannot do this. Because
Right.
sometimes, like for example, in my collective, like we are all salarymen in a sense. Like we all work, we
Adab
have
lah, Bal. Walao eh.
we all have day jobs, but when we run Diplomat, we actually wanted to do fun stuff. So sometimes, yeah, when people start drawing lines like, hey, I busy, I can't do this, and then other people might feel that, hey, why is he not doing much? But then I'm actually quite fortunate enough to work in a collective where we actually just try to push through. If let's say like three of us are busy and then left two of us, and then we like, you know what, let's soldier it on, because at the end of the day we all want to have fun. It's a bit tough, but then we know that when actually we push just long enough for the rest to join in after, like everything will be all right. Yeah, and I think 3 years down the road, like kind of sums up like the relationship we had, and I can safely tell you like we come to a point that we even argue a lot, but we have this mindset whereby the reason why we argue is because we are straight up. We want to put everything of our own personal views on the table, and then we say, okay, so now everybody has their views out. Let's pick the best one. And then once we have picked the best one, everybody erase their mindset and focus on that one goal that we have already set. Yeah. So I mean, it takes time. It also takes effort and experience to actually find that perfect puzzle piece or that perfect puzzle set to get together, lah. Yeah. So that's why I was like listening to you. I said, yeah, definitely all these are very very true, and it's
Well,
a
that's a
dream to
tough
get
thing,
it lah.
like doing 9 to 5 and then still doing your thing at the side with a whole bunch of people who are also doing 9 to 5. And I can relate to that also. I've been in a similar position, and like it is really tough. Like you say, like, hey, I gotta take leave or something, because like apart from just job 9 to 5, then there's also life, and then like kids or parents or something.
Yeah.
It's so complex. I have no idea how you can manage it well, man. Like, it's gotta
I
be
guess
hard.
it's passion and drive. I mean, everybody has. I mean, I think for you and your team working on the Woke Salaryman, you love it, and to a point like there were questions that we always. I mean, me, Haziq, and Praveen, we always ask ourselves like, if we are not doing this, what will we be doing? And most of us, our answer is that we can't even think of anything. We just want to do this.
Born.
Yeah, we just want to do this
Right.
all the way. Yeah.
I see. That's cool, man.
No, but see, that's a very interesting dynamic also, because you can encounter a lot of artists collectives that really don't think a lot deeper or beyond just the most immediate fact. They want to create art. Let's go out there instead of like kind of higher order values. So like as while we're doing our legwork, looking up on you, Wei Choon. So we know that you and your co-founder are also big fans of Jordan Peterson, right?
Or more me lah, yeah, more me.
More of you, right? So so I want to change gears for a second there and like talk
Let's
about like,
go.
Yeah.
figures of inspiration and
Let's go deep.
larger ideas that kind of drive and motivate you. So like is it just Jordan Peterson for now? What has it evolved? Like where's it at, and why does he speak to you?
I think Jordan Peterson was somebody that I really gravitated to, like a few years before we started Woke Salaryman, and I gravitated towards him because he said something about along the lines of like, you need to, it's okay to feel like society is fucked up and then you are doomed to fail, because I mean, like, generationally speaking, we are not going to inherit the kind of things that our parents had. But so I'm a bit distracted because I just got a new hamster, and then like, it's a baby hamster, and she keeps climbing to the top of the cage, which is quite dangerous. So I'm a bit distracted. Yeah. Okay, back to John Peterson, right? So
Suicide
I
hamster.
gravitated towards him because
keep hamster safe first, man.
yeah, safe already. I think she fell.
No animal should
so
be
at the point of time,
harmed.
I felt quite depressed at some points, because I don't feel like I have accomplished all the things that I wanted to do. And he said something along the lines of like, it's okay and natural to feel that way because you haven't done anything. So what you need to do, and he got very famous for this narrative about cleaning your room and how you need to clean your room, because if you can't even clean your room, how are you gonna go out and then do all the things to change the world? You gotta be able to do the small things first. Take care of that. Sort your life out from the very bottom and do the dishes, clean your, wash your clothes, all these little things. If you can't even do that kind of stuff, how are you gonna go and sort other stuff out? And then going deeper into his work, it was what kind of allowed me to and gave me the kind of fortitude I needed to. I was doing 9 to 5 for a long time lah, and then like also trying a lot of stuff out. And Woke Salaryman just happened to be the thing that stuck and that we could do something with lah. But before that, I tried a lot of things also. I tried web comics. I tried doing character designs or starting the animation thing by myself, and it's not the first thing lah, So it's super important, and I think one of the things he said that was very important also was that life is suffering lah. It's a very Buddhist saying, life is suffering. But the great thing about that was that, okay, so what I'm feeling is not out of order lah. This is the way it is, and if you want to get anything good done in life, if you want to change your situation, you have to walk towards suffering. You have to go and put yourself through even more suffering to make yourself better. That's why almost every narrative or every storyline is the same. It is basically a character going through some kind of a boss battle, whether that boss battle is literally Darth Vader or something within, that is
Hero's
manifested as
journey.
something else. Hero's journey, exactly, man. Yeah, so he has a great series of lectures, and I was very surprised that, like, I thought I had enough of that shit in uni, right? But I went and watched all his uni lectures, and I was very surprised, lah. And he talks a lot about like Pinocchio, or the Egyptian kind of
Disney movies,
odysseys. Yeah, it's great, lah. Yeah. Like, another thing that I also draw a lot of inspiration from is I watch basketball, lah. So and I like sports, and I think sports is great because sports is like a microcosm of conflict and the cosmos, I feel. It's like there are two forces going up against one another, and then so I draw a lot of inspiration from seeing the kind of different personalities that succeed. So my basketball just happens to be my sport that I chose, but I'm sure like you can draw similar parallels for like hockey or soccer or whatever, lah. So
How did
for
you feel
example,
about Kobe, man?
sorry.
How did you feel about Kobe?
Oh, it's very sad, lah, because I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Kobe, lah. Like there are some things that he did that I don't like, but then you cannot like deny that the man was amazing at his job, lah. He was incredible, and also on the artistic front, that guy won an Oscar award for animation, and I'm an animator by training, lah. So I really felt like that guy had so much more to offer, and I was very excited to see what he was going to do, and he's so young. It's crazy,
Tragic.
and it's interesting you mentioned Kobe because like. The Last Dance came out, right? And Michael Jordan and all this thing, and then it's just so cool to me to see how people are great in different ways. There's not one way to be great. Like Michael Jordan is great because this MF just always take grudges. He cannot let it go. He's super competitive, and you see it to his very today. Like this dude doesn't let grudges go on. Like and I think to the point where it makes him miserable sometimes. Like. Then you also see Kobe. Kobe is amazing. I love Kobe's work ethic. And what he did was basically he found a way to be super consistent so that he practices super, super hard. Like it really puts this this idea of innate talent out of the way. Sometimes I feel like that he just hustles so damn hard that it's inevitable that he'll be amazing. Yeah, so that's why I love sports also. Yeah.
Mamba mentality, man.
Mamba mentality. Yeah.
Mamba.
Okay, wait, like so now we'll turn the lens towards you guys, man, Haziq and Bal. Like so, I mean, you've heard Wei Choon over here share how deep some of his non-creative inspirations are. Like these are people outside the creative field. Do you guys have anyone like that for yourselves, like that you particularly resonate with?
Yeah.
Let's start
So
with
for me,
you,
it'll be Gary Vee. I think I kind of mentioned this in previous episodes.
Right.
So anything to do with like empathy, gratitude, humility is
No,
something
but what
that,
was it that, like, up till you discovered Gary Vee, like what switch did you turn on in your head that suddenly like, whoa, this is a different way of looking at things?
Yeah, because like as designers, as creatives, we like I grew up in an environment where awards was a big thing. Like we were contaminated with, hey, you wanna make it, you gotta get awards, you gotta get the best clients, you gotta be like the giants, you gotta serve the bigger clients and all that. And I come to realize that a lot of like creatives like channel into that perspective, and when they don't get it, they'll be disappointed, and it affects their mentality and their happiness. So so that kind of give me a certain perspective where
Did you feel that way?
it's about happiness.
Like I know like a lot of people, especially in their 30s, is starting to feel like, oh no, I haven't got this award at 30. Were you feeling that way as a designer, as a creative?
I was, but that was back then when I was like 20 plus. Like I had a pressure where I see all my peers succeed, like they were in the bigger agencies, and I was just like doing freelance and all that. So there was that pressure. Until a certain point in time where I realized that, hey, that's not everything. You can just do whatever you want and be happy with it.
But what about you? Because I mean, not so much about the creative experience. Because yours is unique. Like you came into the design field pretty late in your career, right? But what about points of inspiration for you? Like, who have you tried to look up to emulate?
Like straight up foremost, I don't read much. I I try, but I can't because like when I read too much words or like when a story is not interesting, I will just be switched off very quickly. But I think I am glad that I was given a gift to be able to observe things pretty deeply in many ways. So I think when I the reason why I started my design journey was because I saw this quote. I think if designers would definitely have seen it. Like it's by this guy called Robert L. Peters. Like design creates culture, culture creates values, values determine the future. So
Mm.
I live by that mantra very deeply ever since I saw that text. And to me, like Haziq, like he says like some designers like they want to win awards. Like I never wanted awards. Like I'm not in it for the recognition. I mean like knowing you guys know me, like I'm in it for fun, man. Like I just want to enjoy the process. I just want to go in and dwell myself in doing crazy stuff. Like I mean I'm spitting crazy ideas non-stop to a point like I have a crewmate in Diplomat named Arai. She would just tell me to shut up. Like you need to stop talking because like if not like your ideas keep spewing out and we can't even achieve any one of them. Yeah, but then like I'm that point, and sometimes if I go into like a deep thinking zone, like I'll start to analyze a lot of things and start to relate them to life per se. So an example I had was this conversation I had with a colleague when we were doing an event in Bali. So I was having coffee by the beach in the
Was
morning.
this
Like
a Def Jam event
yeah. So
in Bali?
apparently, okay, just a little insight, Wei Choon. I work in a influencer agency called Gush Cloud.
Just say Gush Cloud.
Okay. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Glass Class.
So when I'm an art director in there, apparently the president of Gush Cloud is Russell Simmons, who is the godfather of Def Jam. Yeah, that's why you
Oh
were saying like
wow.
Def
The
Jam, Def
OG.
Jam.
Damn.
Yeah, so apparently I was lucky enough to actually to get to work with him and also like to work on events with him. And one of the events was in Bali. So like I mean just a story. So basically I was sitting by the beach like sipping in coffee, watching the surfers going out and surfing. And then this guy was like sitting beside me. Then I say like suddenly I just came up with this concept like you know what life is? They said what life is? It's like life is like surfing. Then he said, what do you mean? Like, imagine you waxing the surfboard. It's actually you like sharpening your skill, like preparing yourself to go out there, learning, trying to experience. And when you go out in the waves, right, it's like you're actually putting yourself out in the open, like trying to find jobs or trying to get like the goals that you're getting, right? And sometimes you get small waves, sometimes you get big waves. And then when you get the wave and then you say, you know what, I'm going to go for it. That's an opportunity, right? And then when you ride that wave, sometimes it comes crashing down. So that's a failure, right? But then you don't stop. You keep waiting. You keep waiting for the right opportunity. And then when you ride the perfect wave, and that's when you get like a good project, right? And then you ride the perfect wave, you run it down all the way to the end, and then you're satisfied. But then the thing is, surfers, they don't stop there with just one wave, man. They keep on going, man. That's the drive that they have. And that's why I feel like as a designer, like that's what life is. Because or even as a person living in this world, like you can't stop. Like you gotta keep doing, and when you're doing that, I think as long as you're doing what you love, you can fail many times. You can like crash waves, you can bail, you can even break your surfboard. That means like your skill might be broken,
What
and then
if
you change to a new
what if
surfboard.
there's a shark? What
Hmm?
if a shark like attacks you?
Yeah, so basically those are like unexpected things that happen, right? But surfers still
Okay.
surf, right? Surfers still surf. I mean, you've seen
Yeah.
stories like
Wow,
they've had their
that's
hands.
beautiful, but I'm very sure there's mushrooms involved in Bali. Lah. Like I'm
It seems like a
fucking sure
message
that
that's
you're
sponsored by Skills Future also.
Excuse future, yeah. It could be, yeah. It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this guy who is actually
But
25
that's
years
Mrs.
old.
Bali.
No, so the end of the story, there's this guy who's like reading a lot of books, right? And then he's like looking at me and staring blankly and said, "Bro, like, is this from a book?" Then I'm like, "No, bro, I'm just sitting down here sipping coffee with you. I'm like just analyzing what's happening in front of me right now." Then he's like,
Ooh, that's deep.
"Shit,
Deep stuff.
like I need to write this down." And then he apparently typed
Mm.
it out and put it on the Insta story. And he showed me like his DM
Damn.
said, like everybody is like commenting that post, bro. Like, look at this Insta story. Like, wow, this is deep. This is like inspirational. Where do you get this from? Who's
Shit,
the
that could be next Woke Salaryman content.
Yeah, can actually can, yeah. Very visual, I can see it.
The copy has been settled, man. I didn't know you had a copywriter in you, wow.
I plagiarized your idea.
Yeah, sure, man. Just tag me. I'm good.
Say.
Just joking.
Collab.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
good.
No, but
collab.
okay, see, that's a perfect segue. Wei Choon, has there been a brand or a content creator out there that you would want to work with someday? Like, who's that person? Who's that brand? Is it Nike, for example?
Sorry, who?
Nike. Like, is Nike the kind of brand, for example, that you would want to work with? Who's at the top of the list?
I don't know, like actually we work with a lot of very strange things that I didn't even know we would do sponsor content for, like Uniqlo or SK Jewelry also. My co-founder somehow can get. I don't know how he reached until there, but I think Nike is pretty good. But my co-founder and I are both cyclists, so any of the bike brands, Trek, whatever lah. We would love to do bike content because it kind of gels quite well. So it's just that Singapore is not super bike friendly lah. But you ask me now, so I cannot think of any specific one there.
What about
Nike is a good one.
What about other creators, like artists or even content people? Like, who are the ones that you keep an eye on?
Well, I think in the content space, it would be other webcomic artists lah. Like the webcomic is really a very interesting genre because it seems like we are rewriting the rules every time Facebook changed the algorithm or changed how a photo album is displayed. Because recently we used to do our comics in square format. Square format because it would display well on a mobile, which is portrait, and it also display well on a landscape, which is your desktop when you watch on a computer. But then recently we just changed all the portrait because most people are reading it on their phones already. We look at the percentage and it's just 80% on the phone. So I already no choice because I'm an animator, so I like designing in 16:9 format. I like the landscape format. That's the most cinematic. I like to go as wide as I can. But so the portrait is just sacrilegious to me. But I mean, bopian lah. Like we are here to do what will serve the audience best. So that's what we do lah. So if you talk about other platforms that I like, it will be other webcomic creators because they are really pushing
like
in terms of how you monetize.
Are you a fan of like the Oatmeal?
Oatmeal is fantastic. Strange Planet, if you know, is fantastic. There's a comic called web comic name or something. Every panel ends with oh no, and you should check them out. They're really good. So, but these are more. I think they're mostly either American or not local lah. The local ones are still up and coming, I think.
Have you been approached to do any like long form comics before?
No.
Actually, Bal here is working on one at the moment, so like it's very interesting to see that transition into long form. It's actually quite an entirely different medium altogether.
I think long form on comic, like on web comic also cannot be too long. Like if you see those kind of web comics, usually 4 panels, 6 panels ish. Like to sustain an interest in a long comic is really quite difficult. And also the Facebook format also don't let you put anything more than 40 panels. So we are very limited in how long we can go. So
no, but I guess for webcomic, that particular content that you want to post, then you just keep it within that and then you just post. And then you can actually do like multiple sets and each set can have a different topic. But I think like for a long form comic, like you have to create a blueprint, like a world, like a setting, and that story has to continue from start to end. So you need to create like that world, that blueprint first before you actually like work on the inner content. So there's a difference between each. I mean when I was embarking on this project also, I was like trying to think like how would a comic work, because I think definitely all of us here love reading comic, and definitely we all start with like Marvel, DC, or like Vertigo, and we know that those are very, very storyline driven. Whereas webcomic are like, like the spur of the moment kind, like, hey, this is the topic that we want to showcase, but then using the similar characters that we have, like Ahmad, Zaki, Asing or what, and then like you put them in different setups.
Hey, so Vijay, I want to ask you, like when you were doing this together with your co-founder, right, the idea of webcomics is like you kind of established that from the beginning, is it? Like, do you like consider like doing it in a different kind of format and all that?
I mean, to be honest, whenever me and my co-founder meet, right, because I was deep into trying to pay off my uni debt, so I'm also quite money-minded at the point of time, because I had a freaking like 25K debt I had to pay back, and I didn't know how the hell I was gonna do that. So whenever we met, right, and then we talk out, we were like, how to make money, Like we were just thinking about, and as an artist, it's not something that comes very naturally to me, So initially, I think we were trying all sorts of stuff out, and then initially he created this page, Woke Salaryman, and if you can go back far enough, right? The first post that we did was a meme post. Actually, it was one of those, the Drake, like the no, then that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
So he did something like that. It's
Oh,
very
is it?
stupid and very lame. If you go far back enough, you can find it. Like we always thought about deleting it, but then like I think also quite good to put it up there as a
It's a milestone.
kind of a symbol of transition
start.
or a symbol
Yeah.
of change. Yeah, like you need to adapt now, because that one went up and then it was just so horrible. And then after that, we just did comics on top. So how the first comic came about was actually that my co-founder wrote something about how he saved up 100K by the time he turned 30, which is quite a feat, So he wrote that as an article on Medium, and it did quite well there, as an article form. Then he said, "Hey, why not you draw some pictures, then we put up as an article or comic." And I sat on it for I think 2-3 months, and he keep bugging me. Then I just do lah. And if you go and look back at the first comic, it's really damn shit on, because like some of the line artwork I never even draw properly. Like the line would bleed onto the other forms. I never erase properly, that kind of thing.
Okay.
But the first one that we did then, it did 6,000 shares, which was quite insane now on Facebook. Like that's not an easy number to get. So we kind of figured we might have something here lah. I wouldn't say we were lucky, because we kind of had something to do with the success of that also. But also I think quite lucky also lah, that we found this is a formula that we can bank on, because actually not a lot of people approaching the topic of personal finance with comics. Yeah.
Okay, interesting question though. Like, in the article, when did he started saving, till when he reached 30 to get that 100K?
I think it was not a long time, because he went to army, came out. But I think the thing that he did have that I didn't have was that his parents paid for his uni lah. So I was stuck with the 25K loan. And actually having 25K loan can set you back in a very long way lah, because when you're young, your ability to compound that money is better ma. So whatever lah, he had what he had, I had what I had. But I think knowing him as a close friend, right, he really worked his ass off. To the point where sometimes when you meet him outside of work, right, like not or just socially meet him outside, right, he's very different from when I knew him in poly, because he was very stressed. And this guy was working. Interesting, you mentioned agency and awards just now, so because he was deep into the agency model and he didn't quite like it, because in the advertising world, right, I feel like I've never been in the advertising world, but I always wanted to go, because I feel like that's where you get your chops. That's where you really put in the work, and then you hustle, you work your way up from a director, etc., etc. And I never did it. But I also, hindsight, quite glad I didn't, because it feels like a world where it's quite hardcore. And if you're agency specifically, right, it is the work hours are crazy. And I really admire people that can do that. But me hitting 30 now, I don't think I can do that. I think I will die. But when I was young, maybe lah, but it's hardcore. Like the awards thing, is really so true, because he keep telling me they always talk about awards. And I can understand why. Because your clients, typically when you have your corporate clients, they don't know design. Then they also don't know how to see, is this agency better than the other agency? So the only thing they can look at to decide who to give the tender to is how many awards they have. So he was so so he started, I think, saving actually around 25, 26. I don't want to say for certain, but not a long time, 4 or 5 years, he managed to get 100K. And what he did was he would do 9 to 5, and he negotiated very hard for good pay. He proved his value at the company, whatever. Then he would take on a shit ton of moonlighting freelance writing jobs, and he would take on anything and everything. So he was working his ass off. He really worked his ass off. Like
he hustled
his ass off. Like I at some points I was also asking him, like, dude, like at what point is enough? What do you want? But he was very clear, like he want to hit 100K by 30, and he did it amazingly.
100K in 5 years.
Crazy,
that's
right?
That's a
That's
clickbait
crazy,
title.
Yeah.
So I got like a side question, like now that you are part of the Woke Salaryman, right? Like, how far are you from your journey to financial freedom?
That's a great question, because financial freedom also depends. You can't just say.
Yeah.
It also depends on how much you want to spend in the future. So maybe I talk first about where am my hamster being stupid again. Go back down. It's so annoying. It's Like she doesn't understand. She's so young that she doesn't understand that death is a thing. Like you might die, you stupid thing. Stop it. Yeah, sorry. So how far am I? So I think like that's a great question. I think the first question you have to ask first is like what does financial freedom look like? So I'm actually Malaysian. I'm a PR. I'm a Singapore PR, but I'm Malaysian now. So for me, right, it's not that much because I have a backup plan. My fiance is Singaporean, but I hope to one day, and she's behind me doing work now. So, but I hope to one day convince her to maybe explore the option of retiring in Malaysia because it's I wanted, unless something happens to the currency, which might be possible. So for me, what retirement looks like ideally, right, is that I would like to have 600K at least. Ideal if it's $1 million, either saved up and then invested so that I have at least I would like to have at least $36,000 in my bank account that I can rely on cash for emergencies. Then the rest I invest, and I would hope that it gives me enough passive income, right, that I can then draw comics for the rest of my life. And I would love to do horror comics.
Oh wow!
I'm a big fan of Junji Ito. I'm a big fan of like Japanese horror comics. That is not just about gore. There's a lot of gory Japanese comics also that call horror, but that's not horror. Like, horror to me is more psychological. And I think Singapore has a lot of very ripe narratives. Like all the NS stories. I've never been to NS but all the NS stories that my friends have told me, I'm just enthralled by them. I love horror stories. So I would love to be able to do that. And the cost for me to do that, I think calculation wise, I think 600K to 1 million. No? So maybe I can reach that, maybe cannot. But at this point, I'm very grateful because I managed to save up 6 months and then I have my 6 months salary backup in my liquid cash account. So I'm very stable now as it is. I think cannot complain in lieu of COVID situation.
Wow.
Hey, on that note, like on the note of horror, I'm hyping up this HBO series. It's called Lovecraft Country.
Oh wow.
Like the first
Lovecraft
episode
Country.
just came out. Yeah, it just came out like on Sunday in the US right? So it's a Monday release here.
It's good.
So it's like set in 1950s America, and it's about the racial segregation there, right?
Oh,
But there's also horror. Like there are creatures that are out there killing people and all that.
that
So
sounds
it's
sick, man.
insanely like they blended these two genres together. Because it's about a guy trying to track down his dad, and so they're going through like towns where black people are not welcome, and then they call it like I just discovered it's a real thing. They call it a sunset town.
Oh wow.
So if you're in a sunset town, it means if you're Asian, black, or Mexican, you're not supposed to be there when sun sets, or else they'll hang you.
Oh wow.
Oh, not the
Right?
monsters This is like
Yeah.
So there's two horrors
then
going on. There's racism
two
and then
horrors.
there's the cosmic horror of Lovecraft stuff.
Cosmic, the Lovecraft style, and visually it's insane because like they keep referring to Lovecraft's creatures and all that. I don't want to give too much away, but it's the protagonists themselves are very well read in Lovecraft horror, and it's also conflicting for them because Lovecraft was extremely racist. He had a poem he wrote called The Creation of N-Word, and it's about like how he described like black people as monsters, but then these are consumers of that horror, and then how they have to like we can enjoy the work even though we don't respect the person who wrote it. Like, so it's a huge very well written thing. Only first episode
good,
in.
Thanks for the recommendation. I'll check it out.
I think to add the cream on it is the executive producer I heard is Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams, right?
Oh wow,
dude.
really?
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams and Jordan Peele, dude.
Damn.
Yeah, so I think
gotta check it
like
out.
Jordan Peele, as much as he's a comedian, he is like a horror
Fantastic
movie.
horror director, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's nuts, man.
And you can see the hint of it even in Key and Peele. Like he understands psychological horror really well. Like a 2-3 minute skit, he can make you feel really unnerved.
That was the one with the baby forest one, the baby forest one was kind of scary, there are a few kind of horror ones, actually.
There's always like a dark twist where like his friend keeps hitting on girls in the bar that he wants to talk to.
Oh
And
yes,
in the
that
end,
one when you cock block your friend.
and then he looks in the mirror and he's like, he's
Yeah,
the
it's
friend.
him.
Yeah, like, he gets that. Well, okay, but on that, you mentioned earlier, right? You're being Malaysian and all. Do you feel like that gave you a very different view of life in Singapore and finances? Like, how's it like? Do you have an outsider's perspective?
Yeah, I definitely have because when people know I'm Malaysian, I mean all the most common joke. I mean there's two lah. One is I cut my hair because all the barber are Malaysian, right? Then the
Okay.
second one is
I've
yeah, I
never
get
heard
it a
that one
lot. I tell
before.
you,
Never
always
heard
I
Oh
that.
my
get
god.
cut my hair. Yeah, my hair very long, you cut for me. Or then another one is the 3:1 thing, long. You know the currency. You
Yeah.
know everything they say, hey, but you Malaysian,
Yeah.
you get less 1/3 of my whatever it is. Yeah.
Okay,
my
what's your
God.
perception of how Singaporeans are like financially, like their approach to it, their attitude to it, or life in general? Like, do
I
you
feel
feel
like
there's anything to
Singaporeans have it really good because the prosperity in Singapore right now is very high lah. Like, I feel like when I go back Malaysia, like even though I just crossed the causeway only, and I used to go back every 2 weeks lah. I started coming to Singapore to study when I was in primary school. So this was primary one when I was 7 years old. And what we would do is that my mom would wake me up at 5 a.m. Then we would board the bus. Then we would cross the causeway at like 6 a.m. and then reach school at 7 a.m. like that lah. Then the perspective I have, because I can hide very easily, because if I didn't tell you I'm Malaysian, if I don't speak Chinese, when I speak Chinese it gives it away lah. But if I don't speak Chinese, right, you would never know that I'm Malaysian. So I can observe very closely lah. And I feel that
Okay.
Singaporeans my age don't understand how good they have it right now, and how hungry and greedy. Not greedy. Sorry, I don't mean to say greedy. Take that back. Don't need to edit, but I don't mean to say greedy. How hungry and talented our neighbors are. You know,
Yeah.
when you consider the prosperity that is here in Singapore, and this is why I want to stay in Singapore. I love being here in Singapore.
You feel like you are hungrier, that's why you want to stay here? Like,
No. Singapore is rich. It's a nice country. It is safe. The facilities are fantastic. You know, you just go Malaysia, try to take the bus there. You will see the difference immediately. There's people fighting in the back. You know, the window like crack. You know, all these things people will storm and complain in Singapore already. You know, like I have been in a managerial position before I quit to do Woke Salaryman, and I've seen some portfolios, and the people that want to get jobs in Singapore, right, they are so scarily talented and so scarily cheap. It's very scary. So on a global level, I think Singaporeans our age, right, need to really quickly hustle and be hungry and understand that Singapore's position is a very rich country regionally, right,
Yeah.
cannot be taken for granted, because
Yeah.
the moment your generation becomes weak, right, and stops producing value, right, that is valuable on a global or regional level, right, Singapore loses a lot of power, and who knows what might happen lah.
Mm.
You know, because I think Singapore typically would ally itself with the United States, but China is closer. China is getting more powerful, and after China's surge, right, what region is next? It is Southeast Asia. So our neighbors are gonna start surging lah, and our neighbors have some issues on their own, respectively. Like some are dealing with corruption, some are dealing with pollution, environmental stuff, this or that. But if they can sort that out, right, wow, it's very scary. Just think, for example, coding, right? The Vietnamese coders are super good.
Yeah.
And I'm an animator, right? And one of the reasons I did not enter the market for animation, I did not ever become a full-time animator in Singapore, is that animation is a very labor-intensive job, and you cannot win animators in terms of price when you go to, say, Philippines or Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam. They are so good for so much cheaper, and Singaporeans need to quickly leverage lah. It is very scary lah, I feel lah. And I'm
Right.
somebody who cares a lot, and I have a stake in being in Singapore. So I hope that Singapore can prevail in this.
Even as creatives, it's much cheaper in Indonesia, the Philippines.
Is that so?
Yeah, so like just to share, like in Gas Club we have offices around the world, and our creative team is in the Philippines. Yeah, and they are very talented. I think the only issue I see when it comes to creative is that they don't see as much as Singaporean designers. Partly because their way of life, it's like, I mean, I'm not saying they are a third world country, they are growing, they are evolving country, but they don't see the things that in Singapore, like what do we see? Like, for example, we've seen luxury to its extremities, and we have seen like bad design. So we have a range, and because like Singapore is very saturated, it's easy for a designer to absorb a lot of things, because we are not like in a big mess of country. Whereas when you go to like the Philippines or Indonesia, they are very regional, but
That's true.
the level of passion is super high. their level of supporting local is super strong. Because of that, they actually create their own ecosystem, which is what Singapore kind of lack. Yeah,
we see that a bit on the Woke Salaryman because we have fans regionally also. And if you just look at the numbers, right? I mean, as a business, right? If, for example, if we're talking about selling books, right? Something that easily we can just scale in terms of the number of fans that we have. If you want to sell books in Singapore versus sell books in Indonesia, it's scary how much just critical mass they have, you know, like you say, to create their own ecosystem. Like Singapore actually is so damn small, right? That it's very difficult to like for example, I'm a bike fan, right? For me to get some of the more obscure bikes, right, I cannot get because they don't deliver to Singapore because Singapore is just too small. I gotta deliver Malaysia and I ride back.
I love the fact that this conversation went towards how our regional neighbors are doing and how Singapore has to get a leg up, because I think that there's some kind of cynicism that's taken root in Singapore among the youth, and you know, it's caused them to not look at the opportunities and sometimes, you know, the threats around. Like this is a very fragile thing that we have, and you know, it's hard work to keep it there. Like, you know, you even describe Filipino professionals. You know that one of my favorite things about that Lee Kuan Yew spoke about, he actually spoke about Filipino creatives being more creative than ours. He said that the architects, artists, and musicians are more artistic and creative than ours, and because he was very sad for them that they had to leave their country for jobs abroad, and like they had to leave for jobs beneath their level of education because they were very bright people. So now as the world becomes more globalized and you know, you can build remote offices, COVID has just fucked it up, man. All these jobs are going to be done by Filipino guys in their basement because they're English educated and they're hungry as fuck. You know, it's got to be something that we stay on our toes.
I think the ideal way to do it, right, that is to look at it very objectively, right, and look at what Singapore has as a strength. And I think Singapore's strength, definitely one very clear one, is currency. Singapore still has a very strong currency. So I actually think a good thing to think about might be if you can, right, to set up something here that relies on the cheaper workforce there to create value here, kind of thing. My co-founder, putting it very bluntly, he likes to say we need to make wage slaves of them before they make wage slaves of us. That's a very blunt way to put it, lah. But you know, like, I don't think it has to always, being a Malaysian here in Singapore that is very committed to being here and loving Singaporeans a lot, I don't think it has to always come down to, hey, why you always hire foreigner? It comes down to value, where it's created and where it ends up. And if you can take some of that pie that is regional and bring it back here, I don't see what the problem is.
And you know, because like what your co-founder said about wage slaves and all, then by extension that means that Singaporeans must embrace a very more entrepreneurial kind of mindset.
Yeah, so we kind of need to level up because like we have the open exposure already, so we kind of have that vision. So it just
there's a risk aversion, but I'm actually optimistic about the younger generation because they have been exposed to hustle culture. They've got Carousel. Telling you, Carousel is a game changer. Like kids selling slime and shit. You know, like I'm just hoping that there can be a cultural shift. It's not. I'm not even worried about the older folks anymore, the younger ones. It's the 30s to 40s that are cynical, and that's what's worrying me. Yeah, and it's a weird kind of cynicism that, you know, I'm hoping that we get to tackle like professionally and in our work.
I feel very
before I bring this to a close,
I feel very cynic now. I'm a cynic.
You're a cynic. You're a Honda cynic. I don't know. Is that even a car?
Shut up, lah.
Just to add on, like, there's another method. Like, I always feel like, because there's this term that my colleague says that Singapore is living under a fishbowl. So that's a problem. And I feel like traveling, not just for leisure, but to observe the market abroad in Southeast Asia and even the world is very important. Because once you travel, once you understand, then you can understand the power of your passport. So you see, like, one of the greatest strength is our currency, but actually the greatest strength of all is actually our passport. Like, the moment you can do a project in America or you can do somewhere else, like you hit the jackpot and you are actually like going somewhere. So that's why, like, I'm always like discussing with Haziq all the time, like as an agency in Singapore, like why are we doing Singapore projects all the time? Because we are fighting in a pond. Let's go into the ocean, man. Let's go fish in the ocean. We can get like bigger fish out there.
Yeah, I think Singaporeans, instead of just looking at whatever disadvantages they feel, to start looking at the opportunities. You know, like our passport allows us to go to Cuba easier than Americans can. That's crazy, right? That we have the highest visa ranking.
Yeah.
So we can go to Cuba easier than Americans.
I think this is the time to travel because we talk about passport, right? I think currency also factors in because you are able to go to these places for a lot cheaper. And I think a lot of us go on holiday, then we have this holiday mindset. But I think I also like to go and travel and just not go to the attractions, but really watch. Like you were mentioning Iqbal about commercially what the markets are like. I also think socially we can really look at what these places are like and then what opportunities are there. And I think Singaporeans should go and get this kind of regional, international perspective while still here. But I don't just travel to go and see the sites, really understand what things are like overseas. It's such a great opportunity right now where your currency is strong.
Get some depth, man. Get some depth in your life. Wei Choon, before we bring things to a close, any final words? Any things you want to shout out to, like people are watching you?
I don't know. Maybe I think I want to talk about, because we're all creatives here. So the idea of being woke or financially woke not socially woke or social justice wokeness. Like one thing that a lot of creatives also like that I talk about is the fact that I graduated uni as a very idealistic artist kind of mindset. And it was not an easy journey to kind of meld that together with money and to think about money per se. And because the artistic mindset naturally rejects capitalism and any thinking about how my craft can bring me money, because it is and I used to think like that. I used to think like, this is my craft. I'm never gonna let the thought of money sully my craft, because this is my identity and my identity is better than money. I'm better than that. And this is something that Jordan Peterson uniquely said about creative individuals. It is that when you are dealt a creative card in life, it's a very high risk, high reward card. Like people who are very creative and are very successful are super successful. You talk about Kanye West or even your Elon Musk, who thinks in a very kind of weird and kind of a very individualistic way. But the trouble with that is that if we don't start thinking about money, right, we can become very miserable very fast. Because if you don't think about money and you are not the top 0.1%, of your craft, if you're not the top 0.1 painter, artist, whatever, patrons and jobs don't just come flying in. So chances are what you have to do a lot of time, even very talented artists who don't know how to, in a way, network, they will have to go and do day jobs, which is fine. But it is very tiring to do one day job and then come home after 9 to 6 and then have to work on your art until 2 a.m. That's very tiring. And a lot of times, if you, for example, if my dream was this, to become an indie animation creator, and I wanted to graduate university and just work on my own films. But then the question is, who's going to pay for that? Government will pay for that? No, but I also want to criticize the government a little bit in my works. Then how? They confirm won't let me do that. So yeah, censor, reject. Like I will censor myself also, because I also don't want to get my NAC grant taken away from me or whatever lah. So then what would often happen is then you go into design or you go into agency and you work on other people's ideas, and other people's whose ideas are you working on? The people with the money lah. And you might even become resentful of your craft because you are doing a watered down version of your craft that is not an expression of your identity. So the creative people are quite in danger lah. And I think it's super important, especially at a young age, to realize that you need to think about money. You need to think about how your passion is going to factor into money, and you need to think about how you're going to realize your dream. Because if you don't do that, you'll be miserable. The great thing about being artistic and creative is that we can enjoy creative things, and we can enjoy artistic things or experiences at a deeper level than other people. But it also comes at the great risk that we are miserable if we can't do it. So I would implore other artistic and creative people to think about sustainability lah. Not say you want to become the richest this or that lah. But you also need to do your things with some semblance of sustainability so that you can keep doing your awesome work and not have to starve yourself or to deprive yourself of a little bit of decompression time or time to spend with your family after you're done with work. Yeah, what do you guys think actually?
I got to
Because
say,
you're all
I
also
got to say,
artistic
I
and
got to
creative
say
people.
this. Like, I want to suggest something. Like, I see what have you just said just now as content for the Woke Salaryman XVI, because it's where finance and creatives, the importance of money. Yeah, I'm literally woke now. Like, just listening to you say like just now, because like I'm literally doing that lah. I'm like working a day job so that I could fund my creative dream by working on other people's dreams. You know what I mean? I totally resonate that right now. I'm living it right now, and I mean, okay, I wouldn't say suffering lah. I'm like slowly working my way to the top. In a very
Yeah, it's not a
positive
bad thing,
manner.
because
Yeah.
that is actually what Rui Ming and I did for half a year to a year before we were
Wow.
luckily able to monetize the Woke Salaryman. Now we were
Mm.
really doing this 9 to 6, then come home work until 2 a.m. And luckily my fiance was very understanding lah, because it's very difficult to tahan somebody,
Yes.
after work, come back, have dinner, maybe watch one Netflix show, then gotta go and do my other work now. Especially if you have kids, I don't know how to do it. It's so difficult.
Yeah,
So it's a
I mean,
very
I have a daughter,
noble
so
thing
I
to it.
can feel it, man. I totally feel it. Yeah, yeah, I
Well, I
can.
think you should keep
Actually,
doing it, because you never know, lah. And also,
Yeah.
like, you are able to express yourself, and to a creative, that is so essential, lah.
Yep, yep.
like I honestly, like, you asked what we think about it. So in my other line of work, I'm actually a therapist and a coach at the moment, and I deal with a lot of creatives, right, or budding entrepreneurs, and till a point I have a stock answer to this question, because I'll be real, when it comes to Singapore, right, the graduates of design schools and maybe even fine artists have a massive sense of entitlement, and someone needs to shake them out of it. Because
Absolutely.
let me tell you something, they don't give a fuck about their art. They care about the paycheck. They come out of school, right? Then they'll say that, hey, you know what? I want to be a filmmaker. I'm going to work for a production house, because they want to be tempted by the 5K salary straight out of graduation.
Right.
I'm like, okay, dude, what's the point? You are never going to make that film, right? Because what are you going to do in production? You're going to be working Saturdays, going to end at 5 o'clock. Oh, but I'm going to work after hours. Very few people are like that. And you're going to be you have to be really motivated to be so passionate about what you do. So no one is saying be the starving artist. There's something called the Barbell Method, and that's from one of my favorite thinkers, Nassim Taleb. Like, if you haven't read him, guys, read him. Like, I would say his work has defined me more than anyone else.
Black
And
Swan,
he says
right?
that Black Swan, yeah. And from finance, he developed the idea of the Barbell Method, and the idea is have a fucking day job that clocks you out at 4 o'clock and then gives you the rest of the time to do it. But you are greedy. You can easily, right, work in the Starbucks as a barista and have enough to pay your bills and be comfortable and not compromise your soul
Right.
and your artistic integrity. Because then a couple of years in, you burn out, and then you be like, yeah, I'm not interested in film anymore. I'm not interested in design anymore. I'm not interested in fine arts. Then you'll complain about, oh, the local scene is not being supported by the government enough. Let me tell you something. Go to Thailand. What the fuck grants do the fine artists they have, and why is it that their art can kick hours?
Right.
Right? It comes from a place of hunger and struggle, right? And Singaporean artists, if you're in your 20s and straight out the bat, right, you want that 5K salary after graduation, and you want to be paid, right, to be the next Christopher Nolan or something, better check yourself. Right?
Check yourself.
There is something that you are doing this to, like, flex to your friends, so you can meet them on happy hour on Friday, and then put your stupid ass watch on the table and talk about the BTO you have coming up, right? Like, this is all bullshit. But
That's
if you're
true,
really
man. Like
serious,
really, like my first salary after I graduated, and what I did was, when I went to NTU Art Design Media School, right? Then I got my bachelor's there. Then after that, I was so scared of the job market that I stayed on another few years to do my masters. So I actually graduated with a master's of fine arts, majoring in animation. And my first job that I got after that, I was paid like what 3.6K, and already I think considered quite okay already. I don't know. Who is expecting 5K? Like, are they, like, what kind of people is that, man?
like, there is and that's what they're benchmarking themselves of. Like, then in a few years into my career, I'm not earning 5, and this guy is earning 5. Like, no, dude, that's not what you're looking for. You're looking to pursue your craft and do it in a way that's fulfilling. So, like, the reason I bring this up is because there are historical examples to all of this. Like, if I look at Albert Einstein, I always bring him as an example. Do you know what his day job was? He was a clerk, a patent clerk. So he goes to work as nothing cognitively draining. So he gets to clock out at 4 o'clock and then pursue his passion after work hours. And that's how he comes up with his theory of relativity, because he doesn't waste himself.
Wow.
But
Do you
what do
know
we
how
have?
old he was when he had that breakthrough?
I think he's 30s, right? I can't remember.
Wow. Because he always look old. When I see in photos, because the facial hair, everything, he always look old.
The branding.
But he was pretty young.
Clerk.
Wow.
He wasn't that old when he had his first thing published. But yeah, he had a day job. right? And he was okay. So he had his first scientific paper in 1900, and wow, he was 21.
Oh shit.
Wow.
So
Wow.
don't underestimate how having a slack ass job helps you. Like Nassim Taleb,
Yeah,
he
man.
talked about how the best job in the world, and I firmly believe this for any creative,
Hmm.
is to be a security guard. Because you see, you're
Hey,
literally paid
yes.
to sit there.
I
Right?
thought
And if
about that too, because you just sit there, right? I mean, you can
Yeah.
even if you're not actually doing the thing, you can ideate, you know.
And if you're if you're an animator, imagine you literally are working those hours, but now
Yeah.
you're paid to sit there with your
Yeah.
laptop open with some
Yeah.
paid Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
right? And then if you're dealing with people on Fiverr, that's it. You're literally doubling your money. And then
Yeah,
you
I
go
thought
home
about
and
that. I thought about one of three things that I thought about doing if I couldn't do anything else, right? Security guard, crane operator, because I remember one time I read a
Wow.
newspaper ad that they wanted to pay somebody 8K to train to be a crane operator. Because
wow.
Singapore not enough. Crane operator, and then one more is power washer. You know those people at the void deck,
Ooh.
then you just power wash because it just feels very nice to.
It is fun, man.
Yeah, it's fun,
Sure,
right?
bro. Sure,
That's
it's
a
fun.
TikTok video waiting to happen now, bro.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Watching the
Confirm.
dirt melt away, right?
Confirm explode.
Okay lah.
But,
I think
whether
another
got
thing
my-
to
I see whether I got my
to
old
add if I
Cisco
can.
uniform.
Oh,
I can go back.
what uniform? Sorry,
Cisco uniform.
I used to work for Cisco.
Yeah. I used to be a security guard. I started off as a security guard.
Yeah,
So,
he
so
has
what do you
that
think of this
creative
barbell
journey.
method thing?
No, I mean I totally agree because I was actually discussing with them to a point like probably like I might stop. I might. Okay, the keywords I might.
Might.
Nah,
Might.
Yeah, and
Might.
actually like
And you got that cash cloud money.
don't be an asshole lah.
That cash cloud money.
Yeah, but then like I was thinking like like to rest my mind a bit, maybe be a Grab driver. So I think like Grab gives
Why
me
not?
more time to spend with my kids, with my daughter. Like, I can send and fetch her to school, and then like get a bit of money to like just run errands, and then like the rest of my time is actually like working on ideation and freelancing and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But there might be a chance for you to connect with new people, like
Yeah.
passengers and all that.
That's true.
If they choose not to like get annoyed while
Oh,
you're talking
okay.
with them.
So just to share a bit of stories. I have 5 encounters with Grab drivers who actually tell me their businesses for me to like see whether I can come and do it with a design. And I'm actually trying to reconnect with one of them. The other
Also,
one,
this is you as a passenger.
yeah. So I was sitting down there. He
See?
say like,
Wow.
he like this uncle, cause he sell
Wow,
massage.
hustlers, yeah, this driver.
He sell massage oils, yeah, bro. Then he like,
Wow.
Ooh.
this
Shock.
pakcik this pakcik lah. Then he say, pakcik tak tahu macam
Dirty
mana.
ass.
Pakcik sama.
Pakcik tak tahu macam mana nak brand ini minyak ah. Boleh buatkan tak drawing. Then I like, drawing. Boleh cik, just hantar dia punya minyak. Okay. Nanti pakcik nombor ada then okay, nanti
Wow.
hantar. And then there was
Wow.
in the
Fazim.
fight there was one guy. He is a creative, but he works in a print house, and I think because of his language barrier, because he's Indian, then he say like, I do design and stuff like that. Like, can you help me with my design? Then he showed me the design, and then I like, then he's like, if you walk by Desker Road, got the print shop for the Bangla to print. He's the guy, and he designs the banner and the logo for them.
Right.
Then he's like, he's been doing it for 5 years. Yeah, like the experiences that I get when they talk to me, because
Imagine if you are a driver, you get even more context, right?
Yes, yeah.
it's like a pitch, it's like a Shark Tank in a car.
Yeah.
Ooh, idea for Grab campaign.
Idea.
Idea for Grab campaign.
This is where I nerd out. I love this kind of like hustle, conceptual shit. Like I'm a very ideas kind of guy.
Yeah.
So you know that Jeff Bezos, right? He wanted to meet more women. So he calculated it, right? He said that, okay, I want to increase my women flow, like cash flow in your life. He wants to increase women flow. So you know what he did? He took up line dancing. He went for line dancing classes.
Did it
Did it
help?
work?
So because it's a funnel, and I guess
But to be honest, I think him being the richest man in the world is a better woman flow thing.
at that point, I think he was still climbing up the bookstore. He still hadn't reached that level yet. But
Line
no, definitely.
dancing.
So like likewise, you put yourself in a position where to meet people. Like a couple of years ago, I was a fucking introvert. Like I really wouldn't have known how to hold a conversation, let alone conduct an interview like this. So what I did was I joined the Singapore pub crawl because my job was to be a tour guide essentially
Right.
to people who drink. So I have all these white people, whatever, like Europeans, anyone from around the world, right, of varying age groups, and I had to entertain them, and then you hone the ability to have a conversation with various people, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you never know what opportunities come up from there. Usually it's
Yeah.
whole ass opportunities.
Yeah.
I want to see Iqbal's face. But yeah, but that's the thing. You put yourself in the pathway, right, for all the opportunities, the funnel. So okay, on the funnel note, right? Where can
What?
people find
On the
you?
funnel note
On
or
the
on the
funnel
final
note,
note?
yeah.
On that final note. On the funnel
Fun.
note. Oh, you have a problem with puns now? You have a problem with puns now, Mr. Gush Cloud? For the Gush Cloud money.
Wow.
Look at he hates it. He hates me talking about the Gush Cloud money. He's like, okay, where can people find you? Where can that bike company find you, Wei Choon? Like, where should people
So check us out.
follow you?
Check us out on Facebook at the Woke Salaryman. You can also go to our website, thewokesalaryman.com. You can also find us on Instagram at the Woke Salaryman.
Wait, how would you describe the Woke Salaryman in a phrase or a sentence?
Okay, if I were to describe Woke Salaryman, right, I would say that what we do is that we make the very complex and boring topic of personal finance more accessible and easier to understand for younger people, basically. And our goal is to not just help people earn as much money as they can, save as much money as they can, or invest as much money as they can, but also to cultivate good relationships with money. So it's not just about maximizing the amount of money you have, but to understand why do you want to have a certain amount of money? Like, what kind of life do you actually want? And then think about how much money that will need. And then how do you go about getting the kind of money that you want to get to kind of fulfill the dreams in life that you want to fulfill, basically.
Simple, very well recognized brand. Thank you, Wei Choon, for joining us today.
Thanks so much.
We love
Hey,
all
thanks
the
for having
comments
me. It was very fun.
out.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Definitely,
Yeah.
like I see.
Dude, a lot of two bombs happening today, man. I like it.
he's
I
the
hope I
vibe,
don't
man.
offend anyone.
No.
We could afford to offend even more people.